with is proving that alternate interior angles are congruent, proving that alternate exterior angles are congruent, and proving that same side interiors are supplementary. Okay, so I told you we were going to do this today. Remember that those corresponding angles, that was our postulate. That's a given to us, right? So we're going to work on proving those three sets of angles. Before we get started, a couple things with our proofs here. Some tools that we have available to us that we already know. We've already talked about the linear pair conjecture, right? That if two angles form a linear pair, then their sum is 180. We've talked about the vertical angle conjecture, saying that vertical angles are congruent. We have the corresponding angles postulate and all of our properties of equality, so the addition, subtraction, substitution, all that kind of stuff, right? All right, so here's our first proof. We're going to prove that alternate interior angles are congruent. I have a figure drawn over here for us, and I have some angles marked, only a few of them. What do we start every proof with? Our given. So I have M is parallel to K with transversal T. That was given to us. All right, so now looking at those tools that we're allowed to use, do we have any of these things? Do we have any linear pairs? That with the angles that I've marked? No, not with the ones I've marked, right? How about vertical angles? Do we have any vertical angles? Yeah, which ones? 1 and 3. So 1 and 3 are vertical angles. So I know angle 1 has to be congruent to angle 3. Because of the vertical angle conjecture. Okay, so we labeled that as VAC. You're welcome to write it out, but I'm telling you we use it all the time. You're going to want to write VAC. I also want you to mark your figure with those two angles being congruent. So anytime you say you have congruent angles, I want you to make sure you mark your figure that way. All right, so let's go down the list again. Corresponding angles. Do we have any corresponding angles? 2 and 3. 2 and 3 are my corresponding angles. So I know that angle 2 is congruent to angle 3 because of corresponding angles. 2 and 3 are congruent because of corresponding angles. And I just put the angle symbol there because I don't want to write out angles. So I need to mark 2 and 3 is congruent. Now 3 already has just one tick mark on it, right? So I need to just, because they're congruent, I need it to also have one tick mark on it. Okay, now, a couple of things to keep in mind here. We're trying to prove 1 and 2 are congruent. Well, according to my picture, they already are, right? Which means we probably just have one last step to write. Okay, so let's think about why, according to our algebra over here, why would angles 1 and 2 be congruent? Substitution. You can use substitution or the transitive property. Either one is okay. So a lot of times, not always, substitution and transitive property can be used interchangeably. And that's it. We've proven now that alternate interior angles are congruent. So from here on out, we don't have to go through this. We can just say alternate interior angles are congruent. And we have a shortcut for that I'll teach you when we need it. All right. So now what I want you to do on the back side and on the top, you're going to prove alternate exterior angles are congruent. It's very similar. Okay, I moved around angles 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to leave this one up here, so you don't have to flip back and forth necessarily. Okay, so you work on that one on the back. Start with your givens. Go down your list of tools. Would anyone like more time to think on their own on that top one? All right, what do we start with? Our given. So I have N is parallel to K with transversal T. All right, so now what? Did we have linear pairs? Vertical angles. Yes, we have angle 1 is congruent to angle 3 because of the vertical angle conjecture. So I'll mark those as being congruent. Okay, did we have any corresponding angles? 2 and 3. So angle 2 is congruent to angle 3 because of corresponding angles. Okay, so 2 and 3 are congruent. Now what? Now I can make my final statement that angle 1 is congruent to angle 2, and I can use substitution or transitive property, right? Is that okay? All right, now alternate exterior angles are congruent. We've proven it. All right, last one. These are consecutive interiors or same-side interiors. Okay, so again, I just renumbered our angles there. So we're going to start with the same thing. The measured angle, M is parallel to K with transversal T. That's given. So let's go down that list again. Do we have any linear pairs? Yeah, we do. What ones do we have here? 1 and 3. So angle 1 plus angle 3 equals 180 degrees. That's our linear pair conjecture. Our linear pair conjecture there. I don't really have a good way of marking those. Okay, what about vertical angles? Do we have any vertical angles? Nope. Do we have any corresponding angles? Yes. So we know angle 2 is congruent to angle 3. That's my corresponding angles. So I know 2 and 3 are congruent. Okay, now keep in mind, we're trying to prove angle 1 plus angle 2 equals 180, right? This step right here got us really close. Because it said 1 plus 3 equals 180, but I really wanted it to be 1 plus 2. So I needed some way in order to get rid of that angle 3. Well, now I know that angle 2 and angle 3 are equivalent, right? They're congruent to each other. So I can just swap out angle 3 for angle 2. So I now know that angle 1 plus angle 2 equals 180 degrees. What allows me to replace that angle 3 with angle 2? Substitution. This is one where you would not be able to use transitive property. This one is definitely a substitution. Questions on those? All right, so now these are tools in our toolbox that we will need not anymore this chapter, but we will for the next, well, not even next chapter. We'll need them in chapter 4. All right, so I'm going to bring some papers around to you. There are 3 different papers, so make sure everybody in your group has one of each.
How many papers?
3.
I think my head is going to
No, really.
All right, so you should have 3 different papers. One's going to look like just a bunch of lines, nothing else on it really. You're going to have another one with the lines that has teeny tiny numbers all over it. And then you should have basically an answer page where you're going to write all your answers. Does everybody have one of each?
Yes.
Okay, so I want everybody to put your pencils and pens down for a minute. So I just need you to listen for a few minutes, and then I'll have you pick stuff up. Like, I'll give you time to work and everything. this is your angle project for this chapter. Okay, your job is to find the measure of almost 186 angles. Okay, so there's 186 numbered. I did give you 11 to start with. You're welcome. All right, so on this page here, this is the answer page. Okay, I filled in 11 of these for you. So in about 30 seconds, what I want you to do is, like, for instance, angle 1 is 70 degrees. So I want you to find angle 1, and I want you to label it as 70 degrees. But here's what I would do. Either write it like in a red ink, like an ink that sticks out, or write it and highlight it. Just that angle. Because I want you to write in the angles that I gave you, because you know they are 100% correct. Versus something that you calculated or made a decision from. If you need highlighters, I have highlighters. I can bring them around. So I'm going to right now give you time to label those 11 angles. Okay? Somebody else like a highlighter?
Don't worry.
Yep. Somebody else like a highlighter?
I'm gonna blue, so pop that.
Somebody else like a highlighter? There are some given angles on the back side of that answer page as well.
I might put the and you're not on that
How are we doing as far as getting the 11 labels? Okay. All right, let me interrupt you for a second here. These two line papers are exactly the same, with the exception of, on this page, I have all the little tiny numbers written in, right? These are all angle numbers. Some people think this is too visually overwhelming, so they like this version better. So I'm just giving you options, okay? So if you don't want to use this, you don't have to use this. You have to at some point use this because you need to know which angle number is which one, right? Okay, so a couple other things before you jump into it. At the top of the answer page, I have A is parallel to B, which is parallel to C, which is parallel to D, and E and F are parallel. So when you look at this page here, these top four lines are parallel to each other. The bottom two are parallel to each other, but the top four are not parallel to the bottom two. I promise you. I am not trying to trick you and be like, oh, surprise, I gotcha, right? So, like, the top 4 are different than the bottom 2. Some people like to highlight those. Some people don't. It's up to you. When you find all your angle measures, they should all be multiples of 5. So they're all going to end in 5 or 0. Let's try to make it a little simpler. So if you end up with 62 degrees, you probably wrote down an angle number instead of an angle measure. I will only grade this paper. Okay? So I don't care if you have all the angles written in your line paper. This is the only thing I'm going to look for and grade. That being said, I would not write on this paper until you're basically done. If I were you, I would go through and write on this page or the other one, find all your angles first, then when you think you're done, transfer it over. Because here's what happens. So let's say they start going through and they're guessing at angles, and all of a sudden they say 64 is 70 degrees, and they base a lot of other angles based on that, and you wrote it over here on your answer page, and then you realize, oh crap, I was wrong. And so you start going back here and you start erasing, but then you forget to erase over here, and you think you're done because you have something written in the blank. Hold on, guys. You think you were done erasing, but you forgot to erase from your answer page. So you end up with things right over here, but they're wrong on your answer page. Okay, so I would find all your angles first before you transfer it over. This is due on Monday. I'm giving you the rest of the class today. You'll have all class periods tomorrow where you can work. It's due on Monday. It's worth 30 points. So if you get 98% of the angles, you'll get 98% of 30. Okay, so I'll go through and I'll grade them all right and wrong, and then I'll give you whatever percentage you got correct. As far as working together, I would honestly work very independently for a long time. And then if you want to say, is this what you got for angle 32 or whatever, that's fine, but be careful, because if I have the wrong answer and I convince you I'm right and you don't change all yours, you might get a little bit upset, right? And you don't get a good grade. Okay. Any questions at this point? All right, if you're having a hard time telling angle pairs and all that, make sure you ask for help. That's what I'm here for. I have highlighters if you need them. However I can help, let me know. Good? All right, go to it.
Cool. So, again, hey,